The city is alive with activity.
Hi, I'm Dave Evans, and welcome to $9.99.
NYC Media knows everything about the city, and now you can take us with you everywhere you go. Our new iPhone app has tons of information about places to eat, things to do, and much more. Download the NYC Media app from iTunes and discover New York.
This week from New York Times TV. Columnist Christopher Gray visits the library of a city icon. Food writer Mark Bittman puts a healthy spin on a breakfast favorite. Movie critic A.O. Scott looks back at a mob classic. And our city critic, Ariel Kaminer, puts a lid on it. These stories and more from the New York Times.
Over the last few years, the stingy-brimmed fedora, as it's known, has become more and more popular, and this year it is everywhere. You probably don't even notice all the times you pass one on the street because it has just become a part of the visual backdrop of New York City.
Fedoras have been around since the first half of the last century, but 5 or 6 years ago, they started reappearing on some celebrated heads, to the point that now fedoras have become the hat that ate New York.
It's unusual, it's pink, it's pretty, it says my name.
I feel cool and pretty sophisticated.
It's happy, it likes me, and we can work together. So that's why I bought it.
And all those happy buyers make for some very happy vendors.
This hat is the business of the season. We sell like 50 hats a day, 100 hats a day. There's a lot of profit in this hat right now.
Where do the street vendors get them? They come here to the distinctive micro-neighborhood between Broadway and 6th Avenue. That's where the wholesalers live. Where do they get their hats? Somewhere in China. Beyond that, they're not really inclined to say. Can you tell me, where is everybody buying their hats?
Oh, I have no idea.
Where do they come from?
Oh, I don't know.
Can you tell me where you get them?
I don't know.
On the street, fedoras go for $8 in Chinatown and up to $55 in Nolita. For those who want the best, it's available for as much as $1,200 at JJ Hats, an old world shop with attentive customer service.
Can you show me the difference between my $15 Chinese knockoff and your really high quality straw hat?
The difference is this one is a paper braid that's made in China. This is a Panama that is made in Ecuador. These are hand woven, these bodies, and with the Panama straws, like the tighter the weave goes, the more expensive the hat is. The key is finding the right hat for your face, the shape of your face, and what you'll feel comfortable in. It should look very good and easy. You look in the mirror, make you shake your head like, yeah, this looks good.
So how much longer can this whole fedora thing last? Is the trend crested? Is it over? Is this tragically uncool? It's a classic look, so you're probably okay with it, but don't be surprised if by next summer the street vendors are trying to talk you into a very different kind of silhouette for your hard-earned $15.
Next, linguists and their newest language laboratory named New York City.
James Lavelle moved from Belize to Brooklyn years before his daughters were born, but he never stopped speaking his native Garifuna, nor playing the songs.
Whenever they leave the house or go to school, they're speaking English. Here, I teach them their history, Garifuna history. I teach them songs, and through the songs, I would explain to them what it's saying. It's gonna give them a sense of self, to know themselves. The fact that they are speaking the language, it's empowerment by itself.
Garifuna, an Arawak language that originated on the island of St. Vincent in the Caribbean, is one of hundreds of endangered languages from every corner of the globe now spoken in New York City.
Here you have so many immigrant populations that certainly you have more languages spoken within New York City than anywhere else.
Linguists like Dan Kaufman now believe some languages have become more common in New York than they are back home.
We're sitting in actually something like an endangerment hotspot for languages, where we're surrounded by languages that are not going to be around probably in the next even 20, 30 years. So it was almost irresponsible for linguists to not be working on these languages that are around them, and nobody had done the work.
2 years ago, Kaufman founded the Urban Field Station for Linguistic Research in Manhattan. He recently showed me a recording he translated of a man speaking Mamuju, a language Kaufman had searched in vain for in Indonesia, but later found in Queens.
Sitting right next to me is a man from Sulawesi. I say, oh, great, what language do you speak? Mamuju.
And he may be the only person in America who speaks the language?
I'm pretty sure he is. He's certainly the only one in the East Coast.
Tama di Sulawesi untuk mempadiang tentara.
He's telling about the Islamic rebellion when he was a child. There's very little documentation, no really written description of this language, and so this is maybe the first time that anybody's recorded the video of the language being spoken.
Give someone a command to try.
Kaufman recently recruited Daoud Salih to work with the linguistic field methods class at New York University.
No.
Salih speaks a tribal Darfurian language called Masali, which has been losing speakers to Arabic during the war in Darfur.
Adam, Kunyo, Tunurken, so many African tribes in Darfur lost their languages. I'm so proud that I become part of this, and it started in New York. They help us, we can write this language instead of losing it, so we can keep it for next generation.
Adam hiding the fish, and I saw Adam, he was hiding the fish. Who did you see hiding the fish? What would you say back to me?
It's bizarre and tedious from an outsider's perspective, for sure. But that's the only way in that type of setting, without actually living among the Masali, to really try and understand how the grammar fits together. And all of these little discoveries that we make, how to say this and that, that's the first time anybody's been putting that on paper.
Okay.
As with Masali and Mamuju, Kaufman is also working with students to develop learning materials for Garifuna. New Yorkers like James Lavelle are counting on it for their kids.
If they don't speak it, who else is going to speak it? Because if they don't, then it's going to definitely go to extinction.
Now, Streetscapes reporter Christopher Gray visits a very special library.
I'm Christopher Gray, architectural historian and Streetscapes columnist for the New York Times. Every block I walk down, I'm looking for an odd detail, a strange building, New York's little mysteries. It's my job to solve them. The city and its architecture is my beat. In 1906, the brilliant, taciturn banker J. Pierpont Morgan built this treasure house for the books and manuscripts he had amassed, like a vacuum cleaner rolling back and forth across Europe. Now one of New York's great museums, the Morgan Library is just finishing an interior restoration of its remarkable rooms. His architect, Charles McKim, took 4 years to design and finish this perfect little Tennessee marble gem. It must have been a glorious day for Morgan when he could finally bring his precious collection in to breathe the holy air of this little temple. It includes illuminated manuscripts, drafts by authors like Blake, Poe, Zola, and Dickens, Gutenberg Bibles, and the life mask of George Washington. Morgan finished his library in 1906, and in this crimson room, his study, he could smoke cigars, play solitaire, and enjoy his favorite possessions, which he kept in a safe. In late 1907, a financial panic threatened to wreck the entire country. Morgan summoned 50 leading bankers to this room and told them they needed to raise $25 million between them, and walked out the door. By 4:15 in the morning, no progress had been made. Morgan came back in with an agreement for each of them to sign, sharing the cost. No one moved. He walked over to the first man and said, "Here is the place, and here is the pen." Everyone signed. And then these great bronze doors were opened. Morgan had the key in his pocket. They had all been locked in. 6 years later, J.P. Morgan died. His casket came out these same bronze doors. Frank Vanderlip, head of National City Bank, said, "The king is dead. All New York is at half-mast. This building is his monument."
Straight ahead, the minimalist Mark Bittman creates a spicy breakfast treat.
Here we're doing whole grain pancakes with a ton of flavor. We've got cardamom, we've got chopped nuts, we've got apricots, we've got cooked oatmeal. It's a great way to use leftover oatmeal. Before we start, I want to look at these things and say what you can substitute for what. So for the oatmeal, you can use any cooked grain you want. Quinoa, wheat berries, bulgur, anything you want, as long as it's cooked until it's kind of, well, pasty. Here's milk. You can use coconut milk, you can use soy milk, you can use fruit juice, you can use pretty much any liquid you want to. We've got a couple different dry ingredients here. We have rolled oats. You could use rolled barley. You could use wheat or rye flakes, just a little bit for crunch anyway. And some chopped almonds, any nuts at all. You got some whole wheat flour, any whole grain flour. We're gonna mix it with a little white flour just for lightness. Cardamom, you can use pretty much any spice you want. Ground ginger, cinnamon, nutmeg, a mixture. Use a little bit less if you're using really, really strong spices, and a little bit more of things like cinnamon. And finally, some chopped dried apricots, any dried fruit, or fresh fruit for that matter, will work. They're then prepared just the way you prepare ordinary white pancakes. You mix the wet ingredients and you mix the dry ingredients. We'll put in the almonds, the oats, a little bit of salt, baking powder, the cardamom, our whole wheat flour, and our white flour. Mix that so it's combined. And for your wet, an egg. And I'm gonna start with about half a cup of milk. We'll add a little more if we need it later. Now the oats go in here, the cooked oats. And you can't really whisk that, so just blend it in. Okay, and this whole mess goes into here. It's not really a problem with fragility because there's so little flour in it anyway, but there's no point in overbeating it. Sort of the consistency of pancake batter. And at this point, we'll throw the apricots in too. All right. So you want the oil to be hot. Good. And as usual, you don't want to crowd the pancakes because you want to be able to turn them. You're probably going to cook 3 or 4 minutes per side. You're going to get bubbles on top just like you do with regular pancakes. This one's got bubbles all over and nearly dry all over. Same with this one. See how this one's got fewer bubbles? It's not quite ready. I'm going to turn them all anyway. So you're looking for a bubbly surface and a surface that's kind of not liquid anymore. It's not going to be dried out. It's still going to be plenty moist, but it's no longer liquid. And then they're ready to turn. There we go. Okay, so this one's beautiful. Nice. A little honey on here. You don't need much. These things are really moist and they're sweet and they've got that cardamom and the apricot flavor. top. You can do really anything with these, as I said, coconut milk, other grains, other nuts, other dried fruit, motor oil. The key to the whole thing is just don't make boring pancakes.
Up next, A.O. Scott spends time with Donnie Brasco.
If I had $100 in my pocket, I gave you 50, right? Yeah, you did. If you're a rat.
In Dante's Inferno, the ninth circle, the very lowest level of hell, is reserved for those who betray others.
If you're a rat, then I'm the biggest fucking mutt in the history of the mafia.
Donnie Brasco, directed by Mike Newell from a script by Paul Attanasio, tells the story of Joe Pistone, an undercover FBI agent who, as Donnie Brasco, infiltrated the Bonanno crime family in the 1970s.
You gotta get rid of that mustache, because that's against the rules.
The film is based on Pistone's memoirs, though some of the details have been changed for dramatic effect.
This is my family.
Now, Mike Newell is not a flashy director, but he is a very solid storyteller. And this film presents a matter-of-fact, street-level, and utterly fascinating view of mob life.
Merry Christmas.
Hey, thank you. That's really nice of you.
Wow, Madonna mia.
Unlike a lot of other movies, say The Godfather or Goodfellas, Donnie Brasco is not seduced by the romance of La Cosa Nostra, even though, to some extent, its main character is.
Watch it, Donnie.
You can't entirely blame him, because he is hanging out with a pretty colorful bunch of wise guys.
I got Brooklyn. That's why you sent for me? Well, yeah. Why? What'd you think? He was gonna get whacked?
Lefty thought he was gonna get whacked.
And these guys can be a lot of fun, but the movie never lets us forget how deeply and shallowly awful they are. Joe's first and main contact in the Bonanno family is Lefty Two Guns. And one of the great pleasures of this movie is the contrast between Al Pacino and Johnny Depp's acting styles. They really couldn't be more different.
Look at that. That's like what we call each other.
Right. Friend of mine, friend of ours. Yeah,
Hey.
good.
But there's the double mean. You get it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A boss appreciates a thing like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the irony of it.
Yeah, irony.
The relationship that develops between them seems like a genuine friendship. Although, of course, if Joe's real identity ever came out, one or the other, or both of them, would end up dead. Partly because of this, Joe starts to turn into Donnie Brasco, staying in the character, so to speak, even when he's at home with his wife, Maggie, who's wonderfully played by Anne Heche.
You're becoming like them, you know that?
Donnie Brasco is about the psychological effects of lying to yourself and everybody else, and about the human costs of deception and betrayal. It's about a guy doing his job.
Joe. It's over.
From the magazine, a professor tackles ankle sprains with a balancing act.
Ankle sprains are the most common injury that happen in people who exercise or participate in sport. And a lot of people think that as long as I can walk or even get back to running without a limp, that they don't have a long-standing problem. But once you've had one sprain, you're very likely to have another. Balance training is important because it improves the coordination of the muscles that support the ankle. So we start with the short foot exercise. This exercise stabilizes the many bones of the foot, providing a stable base of support for balance training exercises. With the foot flat on the ground, the ball of the big toe is pushed into the floor and then pulled back towards the heel. The muscles in the arch of the foot should be contracted to pull the big toe towards the heel. It's important to keep the toes straight and not curled up during this exercise so that only the muscles in the arch are used to cause the movement. The leg that she wants to work is going to be the leg that she stands on. I'm going to have her look up as she does that and just focus on a point on the wall. To make it harder, what we can do is we can adjust the arm position so we can have her take her arms and put them across the chest, We can also take vision away. And now we're going to rely more on the information that's coming from the ankle joint itself in order to maintain the balance. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to add an unstable surface underneath the foot. So this is just about a 2-inch thick foam pad. We're going to set right here. So again, she's going to start off with her arms at her side and with her eyes open. Once she's really comfortable doing that, then we can change the arm position. Good. And then we can take vision away as well. So we want to start the exercises for about 10 seconds at a time and then just gradually make them longer and longer as you get better. If your foot touches down, that's fine, just start going again. The next group of exercises we're going to do are called T-band kicks, and we just use a piece of rubber tubing, and we just need to tie it to one end to an immovable object, and then we take the other end and just loop it around the foot. And then you're just going to pull the tubing. We'll start off just straight back. We can progress these exercises the exact same way. We can change the arm position, we can take vision away, we can also have them do it on an unstable surface as well. So you want to keep the foot on the ground that you're trying to improve your balance on, and then you're going to reach in a slow and controlled motion with the opposite limb. And what you want to do is do that nice and slow so that it really forces you to keep your balance on the foot that's on the ground. Because you are doing exercises to challenge your balance, you want to make sure that you do it in a safe environment, not doing it places where there's lots of, sharp edges on coffee tables. If the exercises are painful or they cause pain afterwards, then you know that you're working too hard.
Finally, another happy couple takes the plunge in this edition of Vows.
I realized that in that period where we were friends, I had been in the hospital with a serious infection for a while. I was there for about a week and a half, somewhere in there, and Mia had come and visited me every day, and I realized how kind and caring she was, and I'd always been attracted to her, and so it kept coming together and more pieces fit.
Hi, my name is Mia Oliver, and this is my fiance, Andrew Fisher. We met about 3.5 years ago in a Barnes & Noble cafe. We were both standing in line to get something to drink, and I had this horrible cough. So Andrew, gentleman that he is, offered to buy me a cup of tea. So we sat down and chatted and started our friendship for a while.
When I had gone away with a couple of my buddies, and we got to talking a lot, and I realized that Mia was really what I was looking for.
I think you just missed me while you were gone.
Oh, is that how we wound up here 2 years later, just a week worth of missing you?
So I guess right when he got back, that was the day he said, "Do you want to go and get Finn with me?" He said, "I don't know why I didn't date you right from the start." And I think he said, "I love you." And then everything started.
Our first date was actually to pick up a rescue dog. I'd read all this stuff about puppies, and you're supposed to bring them home and integrate them and make them feel loved and welcome, especially with a rescue dog. And one of the things they said was, someone has to hold the puppy on the way home in the passenger seat the whole time. So I asked Mia to come along with me.
I carried Finn home on my lap, so we bonded.
I don't like taking pictures of myself, so I hadn't really had any pictures with anybody. So we had actually made a conscious effort when we were out in Breckenridge skiing with a buddy of mine to take photos of herself. And so she wanted to see the photos. I had been delaying a little bit.
I was exhausted, and I came home from work. I came out of the shower and I opened my bedroom door, and he scared me.
I said, "Oh, I got these photos from Colorado. Why don't you take a look at them?" And
I said, "Oh, okay." And I thought it was so funny that he put them in a picture album, because guys, I don't know, most guys don't usually put their pictures in a picture album, and it was really organized. And then I started to page through, and there were captions, and they were really cute and well thought out. And I think my favorite one was there was a picture of a tent, and it said "I promise I'll always make wherever we live a home," or something like that.
And the last 4 photos were of the words, "Will you marry me?" And so
I was oh my goodness, I can't believe this is happening.